He fell, not metaphorically. He fell on his programs when it mattered most. And for the first time, the world got to see what lives on the other side of that calm exterior. Not collapse, something more interesting than collapse. Resolve. The quiet, furious resolve of someone who understands that greatness is not a destination you reach once. It's a place you have to keep choosing to return to, over and over, even when returning means facing the exact moment that broke you. The 2024-2025 season began differently. You could feel it in how he moved. There was a maturity to his programs that hadn't been there before, a storytelling quality that only comes from having actually lived something worth telling. His technical scores were still stratospheric, but now there was an emotional layer beneath the quad axle, beneath the breathtaking combinations that made audiences lean forward instead of just look up. At the Grand Prix final, skating in front of a crowd that had fully surrendered to his story, Ilia Malinin delivered what many called the most complete performance of his career. The quad axle landed. Of course it did. But it wasn't the jump that held the room. It was the 2 minutes that surrounded it. It was the way he inhabited the music. It was the split second, barely visible on broadcast cameras, where he allowed himself to feel something before the final spin. Champions are built in private. They are revealed in public. And what gets revealed when a generation-defining athlete finally pulls everything together is not just skill or training or genetics. It is the sum total of every failure they refuse to let finish them. Figure skating season has just ended. The crowds are gone. The scores are final. But something about Ilia Malinin's story doesn't feel finished because it isn't. He is 19 years old. He has already done the one thing no one in the history of his sport has done. He has already fallen in front of millions and come back. What comes next is the part of the story that hasn't been written yet. And if you've watched any athlete long enough, you know that's always the most dangerous chapter of all. If this story got you, if you felt something watching this kid carry the weight of impossibility on his shoulders and still find a way to land, subscribe. Because we are just getting started covering the athletes who don't just compete, they define eras. And Ilia Malinin is only in Chapter 1. He stood at the edge of the ice with the entire world watching. 17 years old, knees slightly bent, eyes locked somewhere between this moment and history. And in about 4 minutes, Ilia Malinin was either going to change figure skating forever or fall in front of millions of people who secretly wanted to see what would happen if he did. Let me take you back to the beginning, because to understand what happened that night on the ice, you have to understand what it cost to get there. Ilia Malinin was not supposed to be this. He was not the polished prodigy with a storyline engineered by a federation. He was a kid from Reston, Virginia, born to 2 former figure skaters from Uzbekistan, who grew up being told quietly and constantly that what he wanted to do on the ice was physically impossible. The quadruple axel, a jump so technically brutal that no one in the history of competitive skating had ever landed it in competition, was not a goal for someone Ilya's age. It was the kind of dream coaches tell you to put away before it gets you hurt. He did not put it away. There's a specific kind of athlete that emerges once in a generation. Not the ones who are disciplined. Discipline is common. Not the ones who are talented. Talent is everywhere. The rare kind, the dangerous kind, are the ones who are obsessed with the impossible in a way that doesn't look like obsession. It looks like calm. Ilia Malinin had that calm. He practiced the quad axel not because someone told him to, but because some part of him refused to accept that the ceiling other people saw was real. Then came September 2022, the U.S. International Classic in Lake Placid. A junior skater, not yet a household name, not yet a legend, took to the ice and did something that made the judges double-check the footage. He landed the quadruple axel in competition for the first time in history. The crowd didn't even fully process it in real time. The reaction came seconds late, like thunder after lightning. But here's what nobody talks about: what came after. Success at that level doesn't come with a map. It comes with pressure, expectation, and an entire sport suddenly watching your every program, your every mistake, your every stumble on a jump that used to be your greatest weapon. The 2023-2024 season was supposed to be Ilya's coronation. He arrived at the World Championships as the reigning U.S. champion. He arrived as the man who had already done the impossible. And the ice, as it always does eventually, humbled him.